I have been clean from all drugs since 2019. It took me a while to write this. I never thought I would be posting because of how stupid I was and the stupid mistakes I made. I know I will get a lot of DUH comments on here, so just don't even say it. I already know. I am telling this story to remind people that everyone's intentions are not what they say they are. I am mentally traumatized by this experience, and I get reminders of it every day. I am grateful to be alive, and I have no idea what would have happened if I hadn't gotten away when I did. So save the rude and cruel comments. Thanks. This story is based in September 2017, I believe. Such a blur. I did whatever I could to survive in this harsh world, so please, no judgment. I was on the streets with no family and an active crack, soon to be meth addiction. Backstory. I started using crack in 2015 and figured out that if I sold my body, I could make easy money. I know this is not ideal, but I was deep in addiction, and at that point I didn't care about anything. But in January 2017, I met Ty, who also smoked crack but worked every day, so I no longer had to do that. I was going on like 8 months free from selling my body and soul. Also, when I met Ty, he had a place in this big city, and he did a lot of work for people there. I was left on the street by the man I thought I loved at the time. I must have said something wrong, because he flipped out and left with everything I owned in his truck. Fuck, we just spent days getting high, and I was sure he was just throwing a fit, so I went over to my friend's house. Let's call him Ez. It was my home away from home, and I felt safe there. Es was an older man, maybe a 60-year-old man, who liked to get high, and over time he became one of my best friends. I was able to take a shower and put on clean clothes. When I was all done, I remember sitting on the couch in disbelief that Ty would leave me like that. I started crying and wishing things had been different while E held me and comforted me. I knew deep down that I needed a fresh start to depend on myself and to live a happy life. Across the street from S's house was a hometown bar where rappers and musicians would perform, and on that particular night, the bar had been filled with people from the bigger city, about a half-hour away. Let me explain. Where I come from, there isn't really a place for addicts to go and get clean. They do have a women's shelter, which I had been to before. About 30 minutes away is a bigger city where they have all the help you can ask for if you are willing to do the work. At this point, I was ready to get away from everyone and everything. I had no hope of cleaning up my life if I stayed anywhere close to where I was using. Remember, you have to remove old playmates, playthings, and playgrounds, so that's what I needed to do. I went right over to that bar and found a semi-good-looking guy heading back to the city I needed to go to. I told him I had planned to go to the shelter in the morning, and he told me I could just go with him and he would take me. On the ride, I remember feeling like a whole 100 bricks were lifted off of my shoulders. I had nothing but the clothes on my back and an Obama phone with no minutes. I asked the guy I was with who was driving. He had a pretty sweet ride. I said, "You don't mess with this, right?" And I pulled out my crack pipe. He shook his head, so I rolled down the window and just let it go. I knew that going into this shelter meant I had to get better, not just for me, but I had kids and a family that at that time still hoped I would get better. I wanted to start over. I just didn't know how hard it was going to be. Me and this random dude go to his friend's house. We smoke a blunt, and I don't remember anything after that. I woke up on the floor of a clean room. I mean clean. There was nothing in it. It smelled like paint. As I looked around, I realized this was the place dude was talking about moving into and renting. I got up, and he took me to get a coffee and right over to the shelter. I was fucking terrified of what I was walking into. I had no idea what to expect. All I knew was I needed to better my life, and I needed to do it now. As we drove into downtown, I got a little nervous because I knew downtown was full of crime and drug dealers. Big buildings and confusing signs, tons of people and traffic. I then realized I was going to have to work really hard to get my life back. We pulled onto the street, and before I knew it, he was dropping me off. There I was, standing in this big, beautiful, clean lobby, just feeling lost and broken. I had been with Ty for almost 7 months, and this was the first time he left me like this, so I was kind of hurt over that. I knew he had been seeing someone else in our recent month breakup, and he wasn't afraid to show it. It smelled like lime with spotless white walls. I walked up to the desk, and I was asked if I was homeless. Yes, I said, and she didn't even ask any questions. She just looked at me with sad eyes and said, "Okay, hun, let's get you set up." She took me to a small room full of boxes as she hands me one. She explained it was for my personal things. Toilets, ECT. I looked at her with unsettling eyes and replied that I didn't have any belongings, that I had lost everything the night before. The nice lady gave me some toiletries and a pair of leggings. Next was the intake, where I had to answer a bunch of questions and was handed a paper with all the rules on it. And on the top of the paper it stated there was no Wi-Fi in or around the building. You had to go down to the stop sign to get internet. My phone was off, but I could still use Wi-Fi, but at that time I wasn't really that worried about it. I knew Ty was already probably staying with that other girl. Michelle was her name, so I didn't feel it was necessary to even try to use my phone. I decided to cut off everyone and try to be different. When she was done giving me the rundown on how things worked, she took me into the day room. Walking from the lobby was weird, and I remember feeling sick going through the double doors with stairs off to the left. Under the stairs was a pile of mats, and I was told to grab one. I followed her through another set of double doors into the day room, which was huge. It was filled with at least 50 females and a lot of older ladies with nowhere to go, but it was loud and bright. The wall to my left was full of lockers, which I was told I would get if I stayed there long enough, and in front of that wall were about 10-15 round tables set up where most of the girls were sitting, playing cards, coloring, and talking. On the other side of the room was the shower bathroom and a small TV that sat on a cart with wheels on it. Next to the cart was an end table that had an electrical strip full of chargers and phones. In the far back right corner was a door that led outside to smoke. It was nice there were picnic tables and lawn chairs set up with a huge fenced-in yard for the kids to play in. When 7 p.m. hit, the whole dynamic of the room changed. Everyone was moving around, people were running in, and then you heard it over the speaker. Roll call. Then when she was done giving me the rundown on how things worked, she took me into the day room. Walking from the lobby was weird, and I remember feeling sick going through the double doors with stairs off to the left. Under the stairs was a pile of mats, and I was told to grab one. I followed her through another set of double doors into the day room, which was huge. It was filled with at least 50 females and a lot of older ladies with nowhere to go, but it was loud and bright. The wall to my left was full of lockers, which I was told I would get if I stayed there long enough, and in front of that wall were about 10-15 round tables set up where most of the girls were sitting, playing cards, coloring, and talking. On the other side of the room was the shower bathroom and a small TV that sat on a cart with wheels on it. Next to the cart was an end table that had an electrical strip full of chargers and phones. In the far back right corner was a door that led outside to smoke. It was nice there were picnic tables and lawn chairs set up with a huge fenced-in yard for the kids to play in. When 7 p.m. hit, the whole dynamic of the room changed. Everyone was moving around, people were running in, and then you heard it over the speaker. Roll call. Then we were instructed to go and get one mat to sleep on. They passed out blankets and pillows to those who were without them, and they let us keep the TV on. The first night was scary and lonely. Here I was in a strange place, not even 2 full days to clean off a week-long crack binge. I was up half the night with my head just racing. I finally fell asleep when the other girls started to get quiet. The morning came way too fast, and the rule was that you had to get up at 7 a.m. You didn't have to leave, but you had to get up. A lot of the older ladies didn't even leave the shelter. They knew they had a place to stay and had nothing else to do all day, so they hung out together at the shelter all day long. I had to go upstairs for breakfast, which was okay. I'm not really a breakfast food person, but that morning I was starving. I had the whole deal: eggs, bacon, and milk. After breakfast, I went out to smoke, and I noticed this tiny black girl with cornrows in her hair had some cards in her back pocket. I had been playing cards since I was a kid. My dad taught me a few games. I played with friends, and I had also spent some time in jail in the past. I was lonely. I didn't know where anything was, and it was obvious I needed help. I asked her name and if she wanted to play cards, and after 2 games, we had a connection. She was cool, and she liked me, so I was okay with that. I can be awkward around new people, and females tend to not like me, so I find it hard sometimes to make friends. She asked me, after we played a few more games of rummy, if I wanted to go to McDonald's with her. I was cool with that because I needed to learn the area anyway. On the walk, as we were talking, something caught my eye, so I looked up, and there he was, Ty with all of my belongings in his truck, driving right by us. I tried to call, but he ignored me every time. I guess he was done with me for good this time. That crushed me. I wanted to fall to the ground and just sink till I disappeared, but instead I had about 10 different emotions running through my body all at once. I was so angry that he was just looking for a reason to leave me since the month before. When we broke up and I stayed with my dad for a while, he started seeing this Michelle. I was just absolutely devastated. We continued our walk to McDonald's as I was silent and broken. That night was easier to sleep because I was exhausted from not having any sleep and just feeling done. I slept like a baby, to be honest. The next day, Mish wanted to show me this place she goes to get a good free lunch. The only thing was that it was a church, and we had to sit through a 30-minute sermon, which was cool with me. We were standing outside waiting for the church to open its doors, and this blacked-out Mercedes-Benz with a trailer hauling a badass Harley pulled up and parked in front of the church. I then heard my loud mouth say, "Damn, that's a nice setup." I looked at Mish, and then looked back at the Harley. That was when I saw him. I specifically remember everyone knowing who he was. Will is what they called him. I remember getting excited to meet new people and be a part of a new community. Everyone was really nice going into the church. A guy at the door walking in gave us a pamphlet of meal times and services offered. I followed Mish to one of the back pews and slid in behind her. The church was pretty. There were different colors, and there was a choir singing in a low, almost quiet tone as people around us took their seats. I kind of froze when that guy I saw come in, Will, sat next to me. I looked at Mish, and then I quickly noticed his gold watch. It could have been fake, but it almost looked like a Rolex. He was an older black gentleman and talked really smoothly when he introduced himself with his hand out. I think I was more curious than anything. I had to know how he made that kind of money, and I remember wanting that. We drove around until my curfew and just talked. I don't know what it was, but I think we had a lot in common and could relate. He asked me how I ended up at this shelter and was just asking a question, so I told him I didn't know what it was. I am not sure if I trusted him, but I told him about my past anyway, about how I sold my body for drugs and how horrible it was, and I even said I was glad I didn't do it anymore. He didn't say much about it, and we agreed that we would continue our talk the next day, and that he would help me put in a couple applications, and he had some errands too. I woke up in the morning to a text from Will that said, "What if you made that kind of money but spent it on yourself, not drugs? Everything you make will go toward building your life. Just think about it." I thought about it. I'm not going to say why I agreed, and went with the idea that this would work and I could actually get my life together and get my kids back. $200 a half hour. I could be free. I chose to go with him. At that time, I think he thought I wanted to be with him, but really, I just wanted a way out of the situation I was in. I hated that stinky, loud shelter. I wanted out. He got a room at a motel, and we dropped off my stuff, and he told me that I needed some new clothes. He did tell me that he was just fired from a trucking company. He was a driver. He was currently trying to find another job as far as I knew. He took me shopping and got me a few new outfits, more or less outfits to take pictures in, to bring the money. I knew what I was getting into, and I was preparing my mind to handle everything that was about to happen. Will did tell me that if I went with him, I had to stay clean and have a clear mind to make money and be smart. Looking back at how manipulative he was made me believe that I would do this to make my life better. I started doing this before I got addicted a few times to making rent or bills, so I knew I could mentally do it, but I was still unsure about where this was going. We get back to the hotel, and I do my thing, take my pictures, and post them. It didn't take long before I started to get calls. I did make some money, and I kept every penny, and Will took me shopping. I remember the shoes I bought. They were black and gold baby fats. Oh, I love those shoes. I got like 6 or 7 cute outfits, some makeup, and hair dye. Remember, I came to the shelter with nothing, so being able to get all this stuff made me feel so good. I was confident in myself, and hopeful that I could get a place and start a new life within a few weeks, if days like that repeated themselves. Remembering how things went, I am starting to think that was part of his game, making girls think they can do it and keep all the money, and then just trapping them and making them need you. It's sick. He tricked me. He made me think I could finally live a clean life. Yeah, I was escorting, but I treated it like a job. I bought another phone, so I had a new number, used the Obama phone for work, and turned it off at like 5 p.m. I thought wrong. Later that day, I went back over to the shelter and grabbed the one shirt I had and some personal things, and I left with Will. That night was cool. He was super chill. We talked in separate beds. We got 2 beds, and he didn't act like he had an interest in me like that, which I was happy about because I didn't want to be with anyone. I needed a break from emotional attachment. After Ty left me, I felt like I wouldn't trust anyone like that in a long time, so I was happy that I was comfy in bed, watching TV, freshly showered, and with money in my pocket. I had the best night's sleep and woke up to breakfast, and time to get up and get myself together. He got up early, went and got us breakfast and coffee. He ate with me, and then left. He said he would be back in a couple hours. Take my time and do what I have to do. So I did just that while he was gone. I dyed my hair, got a haircut, and the works. Not long after I was done and waited for him, the door opens and a female walks in. She is pale and has a beautiful face and long, pretty blonde hair that runs down her shoulders. She was really petite, way too skinny, and had a size B chest. Pretty big blue eyes that had dark circles under them looked like she had been crying, and she was carrying a black trash bag that contained all her possessions. Will walked in behind her and introduced her as Anna, and she needs some help too. He instructed me to get her together, get her pretty, and take some pictures and post them. He then told her to go on and take a shower, and then asked her to talk to me outside. We went outside the door, and as I was shutting it, his voice got really stern and he said, "I see you have not made any money yet, and why the hell is that?" I tried to explain that Sundays were the slowest days, and I would be lucky to make any money today. But before I could finish, he cut me off and said, "I don't give a crap. You need to make some damn money. What do you think this hotel pays for itself? I will pay for it tonight, but from now on, you pay half and half of all expenses. Now go make some money." I couldn't even believe he was talking like this. I had never seen him so mad, and his voice scared the hell out of me. I looked at him when he cut me off, and I could see him get angry. His eyes got wide, and the white just disappeared, and they became all black. I was scared, but I did what he said. He then left me alone with her while he went out and got food and whatever else he did. When Anna got out of the shower and her skin was more exposed as she walked out of the bathroom in a small towel, I knew she was addicted to IV use. I assumed heroin, and she confirmed it after I asked her if it was going to be a problem to not do drugs, because that was his rule for me. Why wouldn't it be a rule for the other girls? After my dad passed away from an overdose, I didn't like to surround myself with girls I knew I could get close to, try to help, and something happened, so I cut all that out, and when she told me, I was like, "Okay, no girl, I'm sorry. You're going to have to make some calls because you can't stay here." At that point, I didn't even care what the heck Will had to say. I didn't want her here. Period. As soon as he came through the door, I stopped him and took him outside. I just told him I didn't think I could work with her. I didn't want to be around a heroin addict, or any kind of addict for that matter. He did make her pack her bathroom and clothes up and took her home. I think he was trying to please me for some reason looking back. Will and I then took a ride to Main Street, where all the girls walk and work. It was so weird. Remember how I said he knew everyone at the church? He knew all those girls, business owners, police officers, and other men who drove drug dealer cars. I don't know why I didn't just run then. I'll never know. About an hour or two of driving around, talking to a bunch of different girls, this random-ass girl jumps in the car. It was crazy. They had known each other for years, I guess, and she had been looking for him and wanted to make some money. She was quite a bit older than me, but still really pretty, like beautiful. She had long, thick, curly, jet black hair. I didn't really get a look at her until we got back to the hotel. Will told me he wanted to get a few girls together and make some big money. I was always going to be number one, and I will never post with another female because I am the number one. He told me I was important, and we were building our own family. Amy was tall and thick, but she was gorgeous. Big blue eyes, pretty skin, small waist with a big round butt, and she was a straight-up bitch. She took benzos, she was prescribed to them, I guess, so he allowed it. It wasn't long before I couldn't help but watch her. She was popular, and then at night she would be falling out and nodding off. It drove me crazy. I think I even started a fight with Will about it once. I didn't think it was fair, honestly. Bitch can get high, but I can't fuck you. What Will would do was, during the day, he would leave me at the hotel to make money, and he took Amy to the street and worked her. Well, it wasn't 2 days before they came home with another girl. Young one. 18. Her choice. No family. I only know what they tell me. Her name was Amanda. She was short like me and a little chunky, which was okay. Guys like chunky too. She had long blonde hair and a cute face. She was sweet and didn't say much. I tried to get to know her a little better, but she wasn't around for long. I posted her with Amy, and she didn't get much feedback. More people were calling for Amy. Amanda stayed with us for a few days before she decided she wanted to go home. Will, Amy and I didn't stay at that hotel for long. We ended up deep in the city. I am the farthest away from my hometown. Bigger room and a little nicer hotel with a view of the whole city. It had a shitty little microwave and a drive-up entrance to your room. Will and Amy brought home 2 girls that night. I don't remember them much because I wasn't involved with them much. I posted them, and the next few days we made money. Every time a girl would make money, they would give it to Will because he had them believe he was saving it for them and getting them anything they wanted. I continued to make money on my own, and I also gave him my money. I got conspicuous, and I will never forget the moment I knew I was not safe. I was outside smoking a cigarette. I wasn't out there long, but when I came back into the room, Will had all 3 girls posing on the bed as he was coaching them on how to pose and taking snaps of them. I didn't say a word, and I closed the door slowly. I don't know why I felt the way I did, but it just didn't feel right. I don't know if he helped me open and close the door, but I heard him yell my name and say he needed me. He handed me his phone and told me to post the picture as. When I got on the website and tried to post the picture as, it now wanted money instead of posting ads for free. Will unhappily ran to wherever and put money on a card. When I tried to put the card in, it wouldn't accept it and said it wanted bitcoins. I informed Will and even showed him the page that it wasn't going to post. He got furious and yelled at me. He turned and walked out of the room. I looked at everyone else and tried to apologize for his actions and to stay calm. It would be okay. He came right back in with a gun in his hand. I didn't even know he owned a gun. He hit me in the face with it and said I needed to find somewhere to post the ad. Do it, or I am done, and then left. I don't know if he realized he did that in front of 3 other girls, and I didn't know what or am done meant either. I was terrified, and that was when I knew I had to find a way to escape. I learned real quick that I wasn't able to just leave anytime I wanted anymore. After Amy got involved, Will changed. He started talking about taking us girls to New York to make big money, travel, and go here and there, and that alone scared the hell out of me. I wanted to build a life to get my kids back, not leave the state to trick and maybe get killed or abandoned. No, forget that. I was fearful for my life when he hit me with the gun. I have been hit before, punched like a man, but I have never been hit with a gun. That night I had a couple of dates set up, and Will knew he had to take the girls and leave. I decided to try to make a plan to get away. The first time I made $200, I put $50 in my purse and then put $50 in a pocket in a bra hidden away, and I left the rest on the table. On the second date, I made $150, put half hidden away, and put the rest on the table. Will came in the door not long after I was finished and grabbed the money off the table. My purse was sitting right there, and I didn't see him do it, but he took that money out of my purse, said he had to do something, and left again. That was when I made my escape. I made 100 calls before I finally reached someone who was willing to help me. He had a friend come and pick me up and bring me to his house. I will never forget the feeling I had when I was running out to the car with a trash bag full of stuff I had collected in the past 3 weeks. I was scared to death that he would come pulling up and see me. That feeling didn't leave me until we hit the highway. I wanted to tell this story because I have never been able to get through telling it. I couldn't help but wonder where I would be if I stayed and if I would even be alive. So Will, let's never meet again.